When I started noticing that my teacher knew everywhere I was, I started panicking because there was no way I could skip her class until I ended up looking into my backpack one day and I saw there was an Apple AirTag. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba and welcome back to a super embarrassing, but I gotta say really crazy story. This story all takes place back in my high school years of grade 9. And in grade 9, I'm not gonna lie to you, I kind of had a bad boy phase in the second semester. If you guys don't know, basically around this time, I started basically getting more into girls and I started really getting my head kind of in the wrong areas of life, meaning that the only thing I really cared about was rizzing up women and talking to women. And honestly, it got to a point where I am not gonna lie to you, I would skip class just to hang out with girls and go do the devil's tango. Obviously, this led to a lot of bad things. It got to the point where I started missing so many classes and that my teachers were on my butt about it. I remember there was one time specifically though, I had this one teacher and she was in my art class and she, I gotta say, was really attractive and really hot art teacher. But the thing about her that was very odd was that she would always, and I mean always, want me to participate in class, because art class is not something you could really do at home. You have to end up doing it, well, actually in class. It's more based on the participation of it than actually just drawing a picture and saying, hey, this is my work. Now, me in grade 9, I obviously did not care as much as I should about art class, but honestly, one of the only reasons why I would show up and put myself into art class was because it was well known throughout the school that the art teacher was hot. So in reality, I actually went in there just to look at, well, I guess her, then actually do the art, which sounds really bad. I understand that, but you gotta understand, like, what? I was just a teenager. I didn't know any better. But one time when I entered inside art class, I remember my teacher ended up looking at me and she looked at me saying, Bubba, you do realize you haven't been in this class for like the last 2 weeks, right? Yeah, no, sorry. I've been busy. A lot of like home stuff has been going on. Just been at home. Sorry, my bad. Okay, well, you need to participate the class more or you could end up failing my class. Bro, I'm not gonna fail art. Don't worry, ma'am. I'm gonna be a-okay, is what I told her, giving her kind of some sass, which to be fair was not really nice, but at the same time, I didn't really care. Like I said, I thought art class was totally pointless. Sorry to all the artists out there. If you guys like drawing, make sure you guys comment down below. But going on, I remember it got to a point where she looked at me really angrily and she got really upset. And actually after class that exact same day, before the class totally ended, she walked up in front of the classroom and said, okay, class, so before we end, I just want to say good job on all your projects. And as for some people, actually just Bubba, I would like to speak to you after class. I remember everyone in the classroom started going, ooh, he's in trouble. And me, I remember I looked at the teacher saying, what? Like, what did I do now? Like, I'm here, aren't I? I remember everyone in the classroom left and one thing led to another. My teacher stood right in front of my art desk and she looked at me saying, okay, Bubba, we need to have a serious talk because I don't think you're taking this class seriously. Like, why should I keep you in my class? Because I want to be here, is what I told her. But then she said, okay, well, if you want to be here, then you should be able to participate. You understand? I will not want you to be absent anymore. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I won't be absent, is what I told her. And she looked at me, looking at me really close, saying, well, I'll make sure you're here if you want me to. At this moment, I didn't know what this teacher meant. It sounded way more threatening than it actually should have been. But I will say it got me really off guard how she said that. But right before I stood up, I remember she looked at me and said, and on top of that, Bubba, I want to know, are you doing anything illegal? No, I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm worried that you might maybe have like an addiction to something, or, well, I don't know, maybe you're into like, you know, any sort of substances, or maybe, you know, you might be addicted to something. And when she said that, I started panicking because this teacher was trying to accuse me of something. And then afterwards she said, okay, well, if that's the case, can I look through your backpack, please? Yeah, sure. I remember this time she actually opened my backpack and started going through everything. But then as she was going through it, she ended up smiling and honestly, it looked really suspicious to the point where I said, well, there's nothing in my bag. Are we good now? Yeah, no, we're good now. But as I was walking out the door, I remember she came up behind me, ended up touching my backpack for some odd reason. I remember I looked back, but her hands were behind her back and I realized that maybe I was just tripping and nothing happened. But boy, was I wrong, because I remember throughout the school day, I am not joking, I would see this teacher in the cafeteria where me and my friends sit at the school field where I would play rugby. She was basically everywhere I was. And I had no idea how this teacher knew where I was. I had no idea how this teacher was around me so often, but it kind of got me worrying. Was she really that serious about keeping a close eye on me? Honestly, I didn't know what to think. And at the time, I thought maybe I was just being over dramatic. But then I remember as time went on and every time I went to school, there were so many many moments where this teacher would just be there and see me in different classrooms, in the hallway. And even when I tried to skip another class, she was just there saying, Baba, you should head back to class. How did you find me here? Don't ask questions, just head back to class. And I remember there was this one time where basically I was kind of just hanging out, and there was one class that I was going to skip called science because I wanted to meet up with a girl at the locker room. So I remember basically I ended up, skipping science class, and I started heading towards the locker room. And me and this girl, I ended up meeting up with her, and me and her started making out. Now, this girl was just some random girl that was just, really hot in my grade 9 year. I don't remember her name or anything, but at the same time, she was attractive. That's all you guys really need to know. And me and her, we were making out in the school locker room. And I remember out of nowhere, and I'm not joking when I say this, out of nowhere, the art teacher ends up appearing, and she looks at me saying, Baba, shouldn't you be in class right now? I remember I ended up pushing this girl off me, and I'm like, what? Wait, what are you doing here? Baba, you're supposed to be in class, aren't you? Yeah, I have science, but like I didn't go. Okay, well, if you're not skipping my class, you can't skip any class. So I suggest you head back to class. At that moment, I remember I was so upset, and this girl was so embarrassed that happened, and I ended up walking back to class in shame with my head down. But at the same time, one thing was puzzling my mind the whole time when I was walking back to the science class, and that was, how did this teacher know where I was? It got to the point where I started feeling like she was stalking me wherever I went. Even when I went home that day, I felt really weirded out. And as time went on, I remember my friends would even mention how it's very odd how the art teacher was so often around them when I was around them. And it got to a point where, I'm not gonna lie to you, I knew something was up. I knew something was wrong, and I knew that this teacher was up to something illegal. And boy, she was, because what ended up happening next, I gotta say, really scared me. I remember it was a Friday, and I was basically like, really just wanted to get over school. My last period in high school at the time was art class, so I would skip it a lot because, well, I'd rather just go home early, or I would go meet up with a chick. But I remember one time, me and my friends, we all met up with each other, and we all decided to skip our last period, which was for me art class, and for them was a different class. And we all agreed to skip class and go hang out at the mall. So I remember me and my friends, we all ended up basically skipping class that day. We ended up leaving right as the bell rang to basically go to our next class, and we ended up all heading towards the mall. But as we were heading towards the mall, I remember I felt, how do I put this, odd, because I felt like someone was watching me and having their eyes on me the entire time when I was just walking with my friend. And I remember me and my friends were all in the mall food court, and we were just sitting down eating our food that we ordered. And then out of nowhere, I remember one of my friends ends up saying, yo, Bubba, isn't that the art teacher literally standing right there? I remember I panicked, and I looked behind me, and I saw the art teacher was literally there, and she was watching me sit with me and my friends at the mall. Like, she was supposed to be teaching a class, but she was there waiting for me to show up to class. And I was terrified, and I looked at her, and I'm like, bro, what is she doing here? What is going on? I started panicking so much to the point where I remember this art teacher walked up to me and said, you're supposed to be in my classroom right now, right? Yeah, no, I know that. I just, I've been, busy, with other stuff. Like hanging out with your friends? Yeah, that's exactly what I was doing. I'll come to class though, if you want. If I want, you're supposed to be in class. At this moment, I started really being scared. And I remember all my friends were weirded out and really wanted to know how in the world the art teacher knew we were at the mall. But then one of my friends ended up grabbing my backpack. And when my friend grabbed it, this teacher started worrying, and I could see in her eyes that something was off. And at that moment, I grabbed my backpack, and I instantly started going through my whole bag. I ripped it apart even, to the point where I saw there was an Apple AirTag in my backpack that belonged to the teacher. And I started being so upset to the point where I remember I looked at her and said, I'm gonna tell the principal about this. No, Bubba, I just want to know what was best for you. It's not like that. I want you to participate in class so you don't fail. And one thing led to another. I remember the teacher ended up walking me back to school. We both went to the principal's office. She said her case, I said mine about how she put a tracker on me. And one thing led to another. The principal ended up firing the art teacher. When she got fired, she was super upset. She ended up walking out of the school, and right before she actually left, I ran up behind her and said, hey, even though you're fired, is it cool if I maybe get your number? She looked at me and she actually ended up giving me her number, but I will say this much, I never called it back. Or actually, did I? I don't know. If you guys want to hear the next part, follow for more embarrassing stories. Peace out, guys.